Reading Mastery, Lesson 105, Part 2. Keep these questions in mind during a reading. Why did the gossip about Muff Potter make Tom so uncomfortable? The story says there seemed to be no angels or fairies interested in Muff Potter. Explain what that means. Why didn't the boys tell anybody about the truth about Muff Potter? Why did you think the boys visited Muff Potter? What do you think Tom will do when the trial begins? Explain your answer. So, let's begin. Chapter 15, Vacation at Last. Summer vacation finally came and Tom's hopes were high. They soon crashed with disappointment. He started to write a diary, but during 3 days nothing happened worth recording, so he abandoned it. A minstrel show came to town and made a sensation, but only for 2 days. A circus came. The boys played circus for 3 days afterwards in tents made of rag carpeting. Admission, 3 pins for boys, 2 for girls. And then circusing was abandoned. Even the 4th of July was a failure, for it rained hard and there was no parade. There were some boys and girls parties, but they were so few and so delightful that they only made the aching time between parties ache the harder. Worst of all, Becky Thatcher had gone to stay with her family friends during vacation, so there was no bright side to Tom's life anywhere. Tom presently found that his wonderful vacation was beginning to drag on heavily. At last, the sleepy atmosphere was stirred, and vigorously. It was time for Muff Potter to stand trial. The trial immediately became the major topic of village talk. Tom could not get away from it. Every mention of the murder sent a shudder to his heart. No one suspected he knew anything about the murder, but the gossip made him uncomfortable. It kept him in a cold shiver all the time. Tom took Huck to a lonely place to have a talk with him. It would be a relief to talk with another sufferer. He also wanted to make sure Huck had kept his oath. Huck, have you ever told anybody about that? About what? You know what. Oh, of course I haven't. Never a word? Huck replied, Never a single word, so help me. What makes you ask? Well, I was afraid. Why, Tom Sawyer? We wouldn't be alive 2 days if that got out. You know that. Tom felt more comfortable. After a pause, he said, Huck, nobody could get you to tell, could they? Get me to tell? Why, if I wanted that outlaw devil to drown me, they could get me to tell, but that's the only way. Well, that's all right then. I reckon we're safe as long as we keep quiet, but let's swear again anyway. I'm agreed. So they swore again with dread and solemn ceremonies. What is the talk that's going around, Huck? Talk? Well, it's Muff Potter. Muff Potter all the time. It keeps me in a sweat constantly. I want to hide somewhere. That's just the same way I feel. I reckon he's a goner. Don't you feel sorry for him sometimes? Huck said, almost always. Almost always. He ain't any good, but then he ain't ever done anything to hurt anybody. Just fishes a little and loafs around. But we all do that. At least most of us. But he's kind of good. He gave me a half a fish once, when there wasn't enough for 2. And lots of times, he's kind of stood by me when I was out of luck. Well, he's mended kites for me, Huck, and knitted hooks out of my fishing line. I wish we could get him out of prison. My, we couldn't get him out, Tom. Besides, it wouldn't do any good. They'd catch him again. Yes, so they would. But I hate to hear them abuse him so much when he never did that. I hate it too, Tom. I hear him say he's the bloodiest looking villain in this country, and they wonder why he wasn't ever hung before. Yes, they talk like that all the time. I've heard him say that if he was to get free, they'd lynch him. And they do it too. The boys had a long talk, but it brought them little comfort. As the twilight drew on, they found themselves hanging around the little isolated jail. They both hoped something would happen to clear away their difficulties, but nothing happened. There seemed to be no angels or fairies interested in Muff Potter. The boys did something they had often done before. They went to the jail window and gave Potter some gifts. He was on the ground floor, and there were no guards. His gratitude for their gifts had always made the boys feel bad before, and it cut deeper than ever this time. They felt cowardly and treacherous when Potter said, "You've been mighty good to me, boys. Better than anybody else in this town. I don't forget it. I don't." Often I says to myself that I used to mend all the boys' kites and things and show 'em where the good fishing places was and be a friend to 'em. And now they've all forgotten old Muff when he's in trouble. But Tom didn't, and Huck didn't. They didn't forget him, and I don't forget them. "Well, boys," he continued, "I done an awful thing, and now I got to hang for it. And it's right. Right and best, too, I reckon. Hope so, anyway. Well, we won't talk about that. I don't want to make you feel bad. You've been my friends. Let's shake hands. Your hands will come through the bars, but mine are too big. Little hands and weak, but they've helped Muff Potter, and they'd help him more if they could." And that concludes Lesson 105. Your independent work begins now. Due in 24 hours. Take care.